unapologetically Jew. Lord, I'm looking at you, unapologetic Jew. Yeah, I could do that for a while, but you know.
Well, I'm glad you memorized all the words to that song.
Unapologetically Jewish. There's not a lot that rhymes with Jewish.
Yeah.
You know.
Hi, I'm Shana Meyerson, and I am unapologetically Jewish. Here today with Pesach Mordechai, otherwise known as Peter Himmelman. Here today to help carry us from strength to strength. Pesach, Peter, the man, the legend. I sit with you in your amazing artist studio. Thank you so much for having me. It's the greatest of honors.
Well, thank you for gracing the space. You're probably a lot more hygienic than the guys that are going to be coming soon to practice with me.
I take a lot of pride in my personal hygiene,
Exactly.
So thank you. You're a storyteller, so I think that today I'm going to start in a way I've never started before, which is with a story of my own. Because as we were talking, I was telling you how these sort of messages are guiding this conversation today. My usual process for setting up a podcast is to sort of direct a conversation in what I would consider to be an intelligent format. Now, you sent me your book, Suspended by No String, last week, and unlike everybody else who sends me a book, you actually said, don't feel like you need to read this all the way through. Just flip through it, pick a page, and read what's there. Now, this is how you're supposed to read books by the Rebbe, which is that the messages are there. Normally when someone sends me a book, not only do I read it cover to cover, but I sort of read it as fast as I can, right? I'm like, I got to get through this. I have to be honest with you, I haven't gotten far through this book. And it sort of makes me want to cry because these are meditations, they're prayers. And when I read a page, I can't turn to the next page. And I have to put the book down. And somehow being immersed in your work for the last full week, I spent like a week per show, it's thrown me off balance a lot. It's recalibrating me since 10/7 when everything just fell apart and has not come back together. As a yoga instructor, I find myself unable to coherently breathe. The wind is being knocked out of me going through your content. Now that's not the story, that's the preamble to the story. So I told you that I like to engage in intelligent conversation. And you could put this in the too much information file. I was in the shower the other day and I'm thinking, what direction am I going to take this in? Because my head really wants to go in one direction with you. You write so much about current events in Israel and Judaism, but my heart is really pulling me in a different direction. Peter, at that moment, I heard a little girl singing, literally singing outside my window. And so I opened the window. I'm like, wow, there's a girl singing. I've never heard this before. She was singing Jewish prayers. And I'm like, which is where my heart was taking me with you. And maybe she was visiting her bubby. I don't know. I've never heard this child singing before or a Jewish prayer coming from next door. And so I'm like, I think this is the answer. I need to go in this direction. And then my head starts going again. And then a little boy says, sing it louder. Wow. And she starts singing louder. And I actually yelled out the window, amen, because that's where the answer came at that moment. And then I picked up your book, not in my shower, because that would be weird, and it's not waterproof. So for anybody who buys the book, Suspended by No String, which will be linked in the description, unfortunately, it's not waterproof. But after right after I turned to this page, which is right in the beginning in part 1, astonishments. And again, this is the struggle of my intellect. And it says, when you're writing a song, try to recall things that moved you to laughter or tears. It's best to keep your intellect out of the process. It will only impede your spirit from having its say. And now you understand why I'm having a lot of trouble breathing. So, that being said, let's start there.
That's a good start. I like it.
Tell us about you and what makes you unapologetically Jewish. And may I add, is this book unapologetically Jewish?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, I think there's when I think about Jewishness, and I'm trying to avoid using the word Judaism, and it's very hard to do because it's not an ism, and it's not a religion. We could go into that later. When you mention this, I'm thinking of this message that I got from someone online. As you said, I write a lot about Israel, and I'm very connected to Israel. I was going to say that I'm pro-Israel. It's like so minimizes, the way that I feel about it. And I got a message from this guy, I don't know who he is, in Australia. He told me he's from Australia. Short message. It says, "You were my favorite artist," and in parentheses, my favorite artist. But I can no longer listen to your music, given what he's read from me. He said, "I'm reading things that you say differently now." And somewhat apropos of what you're saying now, unapologetically Jewish, I always was. And what I wish I could say to this person, I never will, or others that have said a similar thing, it's like the songs that I write were always very Jewish. That's right. And you might not have understood it because you don't understand our peoplehood. You don't understand. It's not just about theology. It's about, fraternity and the sorority and the familial aspect of it that ties us all together. There's something essential about us. And I'm constantly thinking about what that might be. And I've not, and probably will never come up with any rational or certainly any empirically proven answers. I think we spoke a little bit about when we had our preamble to the thing, and I told you it must have been October 11th, just to extend this idea. And there was a woman, a very well-known actor, and somehow, I don't know how I got to her Twitter page, but I looked at her sort of tagline, which was, "I love all peoples." It's a very nice thing to say. I mean, we aspire to that. But I noticed, and this might have been 2 months after October 7, it all seems so close. And I noticed, going through her thing like a little detective, well, she hadn't said anything about what the atrocities, the pogrom. And then I sort of made a little statement among the hundreds of thousands of other people that follow her, not thinking that she would see it. I just said, well, I'm curious about the veracity of your sort of tagline. It doesn't seem that you've paid much attention to the goings-on 10/7. She wrote me a private message. Apparently she knew something of my music. And she said, well, we should meet. I want to explain something to you. And we met, you know, for a coffee not far from here. And she's, you know, very pretty, very well spoken. And she said, you know, she's not Jewish. So she said, I feel really sort of bad about something, and I just wanted to ask your opinion. And she said, given that I'm in the entertainment industry, so many of my friends are Jewish, and I've gone to their children's bar and bat mitzvahs, I've been to their baby namings, we go to the same restaurants, we attend the same parties, we go to the same movies, we laugh at the same jokes. And a number of them had asked me, where were you on October 7th? And this is where she had an issue. She said, I felt bad. I don't remember. I just don't remember where I was. And I said, well, don't feel bad about that. There's nothing to feel bad about. But what you've encountered is something of the Jewish essence, which you do not share. She's a lapsed Catholic, as she's told me, but even in Catholicism, whether it's too numerous, you know, in the number of the adherents to it or not, I don't really know what the reason is, but there's not a comparison to this Jewish concern about other Jews. And she had said something about her children, and then I thought I would like politely dig in just a bit more. The kids were teenagers, 16 and 14, and I said, well, you know, you told me about your sons. Wouldn't it be odd if you loved your neighbor's children's, not more than your sons, but just as much? Wouldn't your children, your sons, feel terrible about that? In other words, I don't think people love in a universal way. I don't think anyone does. We love in a very particular way, and love itself, it only exists as a particular sensation. We love people that are close to us or similar to us, or our children or our friends. We can extend that love out, and the only way we can is the knowledge that we've gleaned from this particular love, to the extent that we can. But people do not love in an abstract way. Mother Teresa did not achieve that. It is not the way that human beings are wired, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Back to the name of your podcast, you know, Unapologetically Jewish. And I don't know what the question was or where I wandered, but damn, that's where we got.
The question is, what makes you unapologetically Jewish?
Yeah, right. That was a pretty good summation.
Yeah, yeah. I'm unclear. What did she write? Was it just simply that she said she loved all peoples, or was something more?
That was just the theme. But yeah,
and then she went into anti-Israel.
Everything was anti-Israel. Everything was essentially excusing Hamas or so. You know, let's just say that I wasn't predisposed to love this woman, you know, nor did I love her anymore after the conversation, because we're just at odds with one another.
She wanted to meet with you. Why? What did she want to learn from you, or did she want to teach you something?
I know specifically because she asked me, like, she's an actor, and she asked, imagine you're a Palestinian in Gaza, and your parents were killed, and your siblings were maimed, and how would you feel? So she didn't know that I'm a bit of an actor too. And what would you say? And it sounds strange, but you know, you're getting to know me. So I really did think about it and really tried to feel it. And I started to cry. I said, I wouldn't say anything. That with this, the pain and the horror I feel is way beyond any word to, you know, to explain. The difference is, I would blame Hamas, not Israel, but that thought is not going to come to that hypothetical young person, nor should it. I mean, my experiences, what made me apologetically Jewish, I mean, the tangible things that I can think of. My grandma Rose speaking Yiddish, my mother lighting more than occasionally Shabbos candles, which I've noted among my friends my age. If your mom lit Shabbos candles, a simple act that doesn't really have an explanation, at least not for the potency of the act. Mm-hmm. If your mom had done that, I've done like, you know, sort of like
an unscientific study.
Yes, everything I do is unscientific. Everything I talk about is undata driven. Yeah. Nonetheless, I think it's a profound way to look at the world. Those Jewish people are much more prone to have this kinship with other Jews in a stronger way, or be more prone to teach their children about it. These small acts that we had, I mean, we didn't keep kashrut at all in my house. I was studying cloves into hams in my house, literally. And by the way, I should share something with you, and maybe you are aware of this. Maybe it's just where I came from, Minnesota, but this is the hierarchy of pork products for Jews. Okay, listen to this and see if it has truth. Okay. Totally kosher bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches. I don't know if you had them. We had them all the time. Okay, a little less kosher, let's say Jimmy Dean's pork sausages for breakfast. Getting a little dangerous, but still in the kosher zone, pork spare ribs on Christmas Eve at a Chinese restaurant. Now we go to head to the danger zone, a ham sandwich.
Right.
Okay, that's a little bit of trouble. A baked ham with cloves and pineapple. Wow, and what's totally trafe? Pork chops cooked in a pan. Now my mom, we had all those foods, but my mom once made pork chops.
Right.
And they were delicious. And she saw how much I liked them. And something in her Pintele Yid, her essential Jew, no more pork chops. Never was there a pork chop. But, you know, there is that rationale that just creeps in, you know.
Okay, well, what you left out of that, which is actually, I think, at the bottom of the kosher pork, this is interesting because we never had pork, ever. My bubby bought beef bacon. It was called sizzling, right? It was fake bacon.
She was into it.
We didn't even have fake bacon in our house. Like, we didn't have bacon-y thing. Like, there was never an ounce of pork, nothing,
bacon,
no
ham,
nope. But you know what was kosher?
What?
Probably the most unkosher of all, because it wasn't just pig, but it also included milk, was pepperoni pizza. Somehow that cleared the...
Oh, no. Somehow I get that. We used to get like Totino's frozen pizza. Yeah, pepperoni.
Yeah, or Canadian bacon. I mean, it was so funny how somehow that crossed this. We weren't allowed to eat milk and meat, but we could have pepperoni pizza or a cheeseburger, but we couldn't drink milk with our meat.
So yeah, we had like...
We were Jew-ish.
We had... No, you're totally Jewish. And by the way, this is something, you might know the idea of Tinok Shebanishbar. You ever heard of that? It is...
A baby of the family?
It's like the explanation is, halachically speaking. Now, this is not an excuse not to do these things, but it's a very gentle understanding
Yes.
that these were children born among strangers, that we had inculcated foreign ideas. We had osmotically absorbed essentially these parts of our culture and did not have the opportunity to absorb what was essentially part of our culture. And there is I don't know exactly when it's used, but it needs to be used when people say, I'm a bad Jew. Like when people say that, and they look at me, first of all, if you knew what was in my head, you would say, geez, this guy needs to be in a penitentiary, let alone not a good Jew. Like everyone is struggling with things. But I'm saying, let's say to this person, it was not too long ago, I said, look, you're doing mitzvahs every day. You're just not calling them that. You're calling your mom. You're kind to people. You're visiting the sick. You're doing all these things. You are in the game. And nobody, not the greatest rabbis in the world, are doing everything because you're dealing with the infinite.
Right.
And when you're dealing with the infinite, 5 is no different than 5 million. The question is are you dealing with it at all?
So I would say the phrase that kept popping into my mind when I was reading your book was the divine is in the details, right? We always say the devil's in the details, but your book has so many of these moments, right? Looking in a mirror, waking up, whatever, shaving, it doesn't matter. But that it goes back to this concept that was so big, like I think around the turn of the century, of there are no small things, right? And that there's nothing less miraculous of a man walking down the street than a man flying in the air, right? This is something you've referred to in your writing. And I think, honestly, Peter, that's what makes your observations of the world so transcendent. Because you see the divine in just being kind to your mother, or that there's 88 keys on a keyboard that can create this.
Yeah. Well,
infinite...
let me just offer a caveat. I don't see those as a rule. I'm struggling to see them. I don't probably see them more often than anyone else, but I do believe strongly that these things are miracles, and it's very difficult to see them as such because we've been so inured to them. And it takes, first of all, a great will to accomplish any feat, anything that's difficult, whether it's music or learning Swahili or whatever it might be. You have to have a great desire. And this has become more desirable to me, to tease out the transcendental, or the English words don't really work. It's that language is really not made for this. But to tease out the miraculous from the so-called mundane.
Yeah.
Why would a person do that? That's a good question. What is the benefit? That's a very sort of American thing. What is the efficacy of doing that? Well, what is the efficacy of writing a song or holding someone's hand when they're in pain? I mean, you do it because you're drawn to it, because it's meaningful, because you've had a glimpse at one point, maybe when a child was born to you, or a grandchild, or the opposite of life coming into the world. And you've had an indelible flash. It will remain. And what was within that flash? Not a view of the world as a very mundane place, but a world where everything is sacralizable, or was for that moment sacralized. It became a world of sacred things in the horrible sadness, God forbid, and in the beautiful joy. And the two feelings are really the same in a weird way. And the other things that strikes me as the same, I don't know if I wrote about this in the book, but like the foods at a bris and the foods at a shiva, at least for the Ashkenazim. And I'm serious, like you have lox, you might have whitefish if somebody's spending more. You have Spanish onions, you have bagels, you have cream cheese. And the connection is, I mean, the culinary part seems like irrelevant, but to me it's like, it's crazy. But the people who are mourning and the people who had just had a baby are in a very similar state, where things of little consequence are noted for their lack of consequence. And these things, which are unbelievable, ineffably consequential to the person for whom this has happened, they're in a state, and we've all been there, where the world is a different one for as long as that feeling lasts. It's not hyperbolic to say that it's entirely different. And if you wanted to lead into a discussion about Mashiach or the Messiah, which it was a tricky one, and I think it's still tricky because of Shabtai Tzvi and other reasons, because there's so many charlatans. But to me, the idea is it exists in those moments that something will be said that causes those moments not to be the minority of your moments, but will be the totality of them. Mm-hmm. So like nothing really changed, but everything changed. And it's not magic, like it's not unknown to us. The experience that I'm talking about, where everything widens, it would just be more of that. It would be a great extrapolation of that. And that's all we need to say about that before all your listeners are shutting us off. Like, this guy's crazy. This guy's crazy. He's unapologetically crazy.
I think, but this is the transcendence that I think you don't recognize in yourself. I'm thinking about, so you mentioned in your book that art, I think it was in your book, is sort of the process of connecting dots, and it can be used to either enhance or distort reality. And in order to connect dots, Peter, you have to recognize the dots. I think about how you can tell a story about running into somebody in a store, but it's not just in the store. You're in the frozen food aisle, and you're not just in the frozen food aisle, but there's frozen peas on one side and sardines on the other. But you, as an artist, like, I assume that your mind is always grasping for these dots to connect or to amplify. But if you asked me what was on the shelf of the store when I talked to a certain person, and by the way, what was on the other side, I would say maybe I was in the frozen food aisle, but maybe I was getting bread, right? So that is the transcendence in to sort of address something that you said in the beginning, which is what makes it special to understand these moments. What makes it special to understand not just these moments, right? The space between the notes, right? As they would say, like in a music analogy, is to give meaning to life itself. Because if life only matters when somebody's born, when somebody dies, when somebody gets married, or somebody gets a job, well, that's like what? 0.01%
That's right. That's
of our
what I'm
life.
saying. Exactly. Too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pointing to the efficacy, and there is, but if you chase a result in any endeavor, like you do have to have a broad goal. But while you're working, if you're chasing a result and not chasing the moment, you're going to miss it. Like, we're playing some of my songs. It was set up for a rehearsal. And the drummer is one of my best friends. I played with him since he was 11 and I was 12. He was amazing at 11. I was just faking it as I am now.
As you are.
But the difference between a drummer that plays, like I can play some drums, you know, and I can go boom, back, boom, 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 back, boom, back, boom, 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 back. But the drummer who plays that hears the whole thing differently. And everything is magnified. The details are there. And that's the difference between me and an actual really great drummer. And the same way with, I don't know, any kind of art form, any kind of relationship. That's where it really matters. That's the greatest art form that we have, is our relationships. You know, that's really everything. The other thing I want, just bring it up. Again, you make me think now without even, I don't know what questions you have.
I'm so glad I don't have anything. These are just like, look at this scribble. I just was writing thoughts down as I was reading your book.
I was thinking about, you know, one of the things of many things that changed for me from when I was a kid and now, you hope things change, you know. When I was a kid, I just wanted to be famous. It was important. And I wanted to make things just to connect and to feel and to do. And it was really important to me. It was the most important thing. And when I got a record deal, and I was so happy that I'd gotten the most important thing, but at the same time, it was just after my dad had died. And it wasn't the most important thing. And then I got married and had a kid, and they wanted me to go out on the road. Like, when my oldest son, who's now like, you know, he's a man, he's like 37. When he was a little kid, I think I went on the road while in his first year, like 230 days to promote the record. And it was something I wanted, but the difference between 1 and 2, the music wasn't 49, like I love to swim, but it's down there. You know, it was 2, but it wasn't 1.
Right.
And as I started to think about what 1 is in terms of, let's say, creativity, it is the project of your life. It is the most important project, if you want to use that terminology. And the details of that matter so much. And of course, we all know artists and things that made their work number 1. I used to know this guy. He was a songwriter. He was on my label, and he's a good songwriter. And his wife was pregnant, and he's sitting in the backstage with me. He goes, you know, I told Nancy that I'm going to have to be leaving her for a while. I'm going to go to London and write. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And, you know, I told her I'm going to be on tour and, you know, just I'm going to have to deal with it. I'm like, first of all, I'm thinking, why couldn't you can write in your bedroom? Like, you need to be in London, and then you're going to tell your pregnant wife you're going to be on this long tour. Well, he wasn't on a long tour because the label dropped him anyway. But like,
right,
that's what the danger of misunderstanding 1 is intense, and the connection to number 1 is not a small one. I go to these venues, you know, that I used to play at, just like the Chicago theater, we would sell it out. If I couldn't sell out the bathroom of that place now, you know what I mean? And it's still a painful thing, but it isn't a thing that offers me any regret whatsoever. You know, having no regrets doesn't mean you no longer feel the pain of things. It's just something that my, intellect overrode my desire for, and I'm so glad.
So your number one and your number two happen to be creating life and creating art. These are both works of creation, very, very different, but both of them are creating something new from something that wasn't there before, as you have said, creating order out of chaos, which is really sort of God's job in this universe, right? It is like, if for anybody who doesn't believe in God, just keep going backwards and say how until you find out that something came out of nothing, and then order was created.
Right.
So with all this, I'll say creativity, but also creation, as a creator, you have 8 grandsons, correct? So that you've got a nice, generations, in God willing, you will see your great-grandchildren and your great-great-grandchildren to come. Do you feel, because you're not just a creator, you write, you compose, you sing, you paint, name the things. I don't know. You do all the things, right? You could even play the drums crappily, or whatever you're saying. You have the creativity gene, the creation gene, and you have that tie to that. Just being a creator in both of these aspects, both as a father, I'd love for you to talk about the intergenerational, dynamic of being a grandfather and a grandson and a son. But does being connected to this ability to create bring you closer to God?
Well, yes, and the number one, I put God and Jewishness and family all in one. It's all one. Mm. It's not a...
what would you call that?
I don't know. We'll have to make up a name, maybe an acronym. I'll think about it. It's just sort of... I don't really know, and it's a good sign that I don't have a name for it. I'm going to leave it nebulous for now.
Okay.
But number one just feeds everything, and it's become much more intense. Let me just point to something that I know a lot of people feel. A lot after 10/7. Pretty much anyone that's like Jewish and not comatose understands that something for them on a personal level has changed. And certainly the people in your audience. So for me, these impulses, let's say, these desires of mine to create, everything kicked in much, much harder. And I think I mentioned to you that I watched that 47-minute film, and it was a couple months after 10/7. I was in New York, and my wife met this guy in an elevator who was there. It was a very, they had to know who you were to get in there. It was at the Bank of Israel offices, and one of my daughters said, you shouldn't see it. You're too sensitive. It's going to be bad for you. And, she wasn't wrong. And at the same time, I don't regret seeing it. It did change something in me. For a long time, I told my wife, I don't have this anymore. Some sort of native trust that I have in people withered a bit. Like I'd seen and heard, that's enough to even mention that, just things that were so out of line. And I was so full, I could say I was so full of anger, but we know that it's really just sadness. I remember coming back from that film, and I came back really late. I stayed to speak with the people that were there, and I got into bed. We were at a hotel in New York, and my wife had long been asleep, and I just seized on this one scene, which I shan't explain, and I just cried like a baby. My body was shaking, just shaking. And my wife is like holding me. She's like, I don't do that very often. Like, it was just, and what is the shaking all about? What's at the root of it? At the root of it, and I'm just thinking about this now, it's incredulity, where the whole terra firma of your reality, and this is, I'm not alone in this sensation, this is people throughout history have felt this. Just right. Can only explain my own part of it. Whatever you thought it was, it being it, everything, now shifted, it gave way. And because it was an indescribable, my feeling is, I think I write about it in the book, is that when you come to the place where whatever it is you're feeling, for good or ill, there's this incredible, wonderful faculty that's only human beings have, that water comes out of your eyes, salt water, and your body can shake, and you again see the world in a different way for a certain amount of time. Maybe that's a life-preserving faculty, because you don't have the means of expression. Your language has failed for sure, but there's a physiology that comes to your rescue, so that afterwards you can breathe for a while. And that lasted for a long time, but it did make me see time itself differently. The little things that used to bother me don't bother me as much. The hourglass, I'm older, I'm not 22, but the hourglass, like, I need to get things done. I need to say the things I need to say, and some of the things I need to say are not pleasing to a great number of people around the globe, but I just need to say them. And I think having seen the film was a plus in that way. Now I know what I didn't know before.
As someone who feels too hard, I know I would not be able to watch that and never get it out of my mind for my entire life.
I would never advise anyone to see that. Yeah, no, it's not for people, and people would say to me, they should put that film out. Like, first of all, the families don't want it out. Are you kidding? Should never happen. The whole film, and by the way, what I saw, and the guy was a naval attaché that I was speaking to from Israel. He worked with the UN. He says, Peter, this is only 5% of what we have, and what we have is much worse. And if you read that Silence No More document, you see, yeah, that was not the sum of it. But I said, people are saying they should see this. It sounds dumb to me. He goes, yeah, I mean, the families don't want it. And worse, they're just going to say it's fake, like they do.
Or they're going to celebrate it.
Yeah, they're going to celebrate it or whatever, right?
It's like your friend, not friend. It's not your friend who loves all peoples. Well, all would seem to include Jews.
Yeah,
but somehow we fall through that crack. I mean, what is it that makes Jews so exceptional that when we're talking about consummate ideas like loving all people, that somehow, or believing all women, or take the thing, what is it about the Jews that you think the world sees as so different from the rest of the world, that this tiny modicum of a people has to be excluded from all? When I say humanity, I also mean the humanity of man. How do we fall through that crack?
Well, it's a really big question, and anything I say to answer it's not going to be complete or maybe even relevant, but if you're seeing the framework of the world in a universalist way, again, sort of the antonym of in a particularist way, you will see the Jews for what they actually are. They are very particular. The Jew is rejectionist, like rejecting pork, rejecting Jesus, rejecting Muhammad, saying no to living the culture that everyone else lived, no to working on Shabbat. Like, it's a lot of no's in this particularity. There are many strands to an answer. This is just one of them. And I think that if you were raised, like many people in our culture are, to feel that a universalist perspective is the height, is the moral imperative, then you're going to look at the Jew with some, especially when the Jew uses violence to protect themselves, or too much violence, or how much violence, like how many people were killed. Well, Hamas fudged the numbers, and I hear Israel defenders say that, but like 200 people killed is a lot. 1,000 people killed, pictures of babies of 1,500, which is, John Spencer comes on and says, rightly so, that in war this is actually a good ratio. But that doesn't make anyone feel better about it. And when the Jew, and this is kind of a Dara Horn idea, people love dead Jews. When the Jew gets power, that's a very, very difficult thing for the world. And it's difficult for Jews. I never had a damn second of problem with it. Not that anyone should use it irresponsibly, but this is part of what it is. There's a couple friends that I've lost, not too many, over this thing. A couple of sad situations. And the only way I can understand it is that this person, or these few people, had no idea who I was. They did not understand me. They didn't understand my songs that are, some of them, about love and things like this, but they didn't understand who wrote them. And if you hurt me, you will not see a different me, but you will see a facet of me that didn't need to come to the fore before. And you probably will be aghast at that and not like me anymore. But, you know, I don't really lose sleep over it, at least not at this point.
Yeah. I've lost most of my friends.
Have you?
Yes, and they always did know where I stood. It's interesting that you're saying that they didn't know who you are. I think it's a lack of understanding of who the Jews are and who Israel is and what they represent and what they're up against and beyond statistics. Like how could 9/11 matter but 10/7 not matter? How could, you know, so I know it's not personal. It's that they see my morals as being different from their morals, or vice versa. It's based upon a different understanding of history and who you, I guess, receive your information from, right? Because when you have the education system, the mass media, the NGOs, the diplomats, the government leaders all spouting the same lies and propaganda, like, people can't understand that sometimes a conspiracy is real. We saw it happen in World War II. We're seeing it happen now. But the old refrain of everybody in the world can't be wrong, can they? They're saying Israel is evil. And the answer is yes, they actually can be wrong. They are wrong. But I think our friends who used to be friends can't wrap their head around, I know that Peter is a good guy, a moral guy, a religious guy. He's connected to God. He's all the things, but somehow he believes this horrible thing, and that's where I can no longer.
Yeah, I mean, I forgive these people. I mean, you can't know what you don't know. I think that, interestingly, these things, this universal idea, is a very Christian idea, which, like any idea from Christianity, came from Judaism. And, you know, Judaism posits that everyone is sacred. You know, they're before God. And Paul, that came, you know, 250 years after Jesus, you know, had to create a new brand. And this is an easily sellable thing. And I do think that Jews and everybody else in the West has been influenced by Christianity. You can't help it, you know, by osmosis. And the people in keffiyehs in the encampments on Columbia, the last thing they want to be thought of is, like, you know, adherents of Christianity. You know, they're basically a secular lot. But
Ironically, they'll also go to their graves insisting they're not anti-Semites.
You know, I'm going to think about this whole thing, anti-Semitic, or losing attention to it. You know, is anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism? It's kind of asking sort of the wrong question. You know, when something is so obvious, asking questions about it gives it a kind of life. It breathes air into something that shouldn't have air. Now, if you really want to parse it, you know, is this a guitar? You know, I guess you could say, well, it's wood shaped, you know, they shaped it like a woman's hips, and you could, but what's the point? Half of the world's Jewish population lives in Israel. End of the story. Now, the better question is, well, what do you have to do with those people? That's where it starts. And it's their incredulity about our particularism that we could be feeling familial feelings about these people when we're 7,000 miles apart.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really have to do with the polity of Israel It has to do with the people. If these people were in Toronto, the Jews, I would feel the exact same way.
Right.
You know, I love Israel. I understand the beauty of it and the you know, the sanctity of it. But it's always the people.
Yeah.
And I have a certain amount of forgiveness for the people that will not listen to my songs anymore. And Nebuch, you don't have that feeling in your life, that there's this population of 7 million people that you will risk your life for or your career for. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful feeling. And the reward that we have for being born here, and also the responsibilities that we're given, because there are many responsibilities, including the mitzvot, but responsibility for one another. It's a beautiful thing. If I weren't born Jewish, I would either hate the Jews or I would convert al pi halacha to be a Jew. I would be fascinated by Jews. I am fascinated by Jews. I'm fascinated with our history. I'm fascinated with our resilience, with the people that have emerged from within our peoplehood. I mean, I can't help it. This is why my wife says I'm the Spike Lee of the Jewish world. You know, I care about them. It does not preclude me caring about other people.
Right.
It makes me understand how to care for other people.
So you became religious a little later in life, meaning you weren't brought up religious. How much does your commitment to Jewish observance, again, we'll use broader terms here, how much do you think that guides not only your morality, but quite honestly, you have a very high tolerance that I lack for those who would speak against us. I could intellectualize why
well,
they
you're not
think
hearing me in private, like swearing
no, I'm
about
not.
stuff.
But I'm reading
are,
and listening to all your stuff, and
right,
you're very measured in the way that you address this.
When I speak to you, because I know this is going to be public, well, not only for those reasons,
Yeah.
but when I'm writing and when I'm speaking to you, I don't want to say cortisol inspired things. I want to say things that I think are more truthful. You know, I want to express feelings
Right.
that are just not amped up, but are more reasoned. And those are the feelings that ultimately I would embrace as more truthful about me.
So how much has your Jewish observance guided your response to the world since 10/7?
Well, it's a big question. I mean, when I used the sort of the totem pole or the hierarchical, this is first and this is second, you know, there's many, it goes down to 1 million, but that number one, it doesn't subsume all the others. They have their own individuality, let's say, but it definitely shines light and energy on all of them. You know, that the faith in God has so much to do with the way I feel about family.
Yeah.
You know, and family has so much to do with the things I will create and the friendships and relationships that I will cultivate. So it's very strong, but it's indirect.
What's faith?
Yeah, one thing I want to note, and this is just something that I'm trying to do, because it's almost impossible not to. Judaism, in my understanding of history, was given the term religion, religio, from the Latin. And it was a demeaning nomenclature. Why? Because in order to substantiate this new religion, was Catholicism essentially, they couldn't get rid of the foundation, which was the Jewish people, but they had to denigrate it somehow. They had to usurp it. There was the usurpation of this. That's why the Old Testament and the New Testament. So they gave it the name religio, and the Zoroastrians were a religion, and other peoples were religions, and the Jew was a religion. And Catholic, you ever heard people use the word Catholic in their conversations? It's sort of a discarded word, but he's very Catholic on this position. It means universal.
Okay.
It means the ultimate, the truth. And Judaism was just one of these religions, even though it underpinned anything that's credible about that religion, or Islam for that matter. So it's hard not to use the word Judaism as a Jewishness. It's a little harder. And religion is handy, but as you noted in the details of the sardines and the frozen peas, the words, which are the only thing we have, you might have read Wittgenstein, and the extent of your world is the extent of your language. The better your, not that you're highfalutin language, but the deeper you delve into the etymologies of these words, the more you can see. One I dug up recently was, no, I'll go there. I will go there. Like, back to Old English, I will go there. I have a will to proceed there. It's almost like you could catch yourself and not talk anymore,
Okay, let's talk a little etymology here. The concept of faith, if we want to say that Judaism is a faith and not a religion, perhaps, indicates that you are putting your belief in something that essentially you cannot prove. That is faith. Is there truth in faith?
Well, these are good questions. I'm spitballing all along. I spitball through life.
I'm spitballing off you
I
because you've
spitball
got
all
my
through life.
mind.
So, I mean, there isn't proof in faith, but there may well be proof.
Truth, I said.
Or truth.
Yeah.
Yes, there may be truth in the actions that faith makes manifest. Now, truth is, it's a weird word to use. That's why it's suffused all along the Torah. You hear the word emet. You see it in the siddur. Even when you're saying the Shema in every siddur, the word emet and at the end of the second part of the Shema, or the third part really, it's always in bold letters, but they break up the sentence. It's part of the former sentence.
Right.
And to me, it's like, I want you to think about this word, because there's going to be things that happen throughout the millennia that will cause you to lose sight of it. And now we've lost sight of truth so much. It's so easy to see with artificial intelligence, with memes and things.
Right.
And, so the person's actions, you could judge for yourself. Is this person who purports to be a person of faith, is he a dick? I mean, just quite frankly, or is he kind to the waiter? It's always a good thing. Whenever I've been in these business meetings, you check out how you are with a waiter, because that's how you're going to be with me. Are you seeing the humanity in this person that's serving you your corned beef sandwich? Or is he just a slave, not worth your time?
Right.
So faith itself is very abstract, but the manifestations of faith are very apparent.
What are the manifestations of faith?
If one's faith tells you to be truthful, don't lie, unless it's a very thing that will really protect somebody, the different ways to think about it.
Is that faith or is that morality?
Well, I mean, morality and faith are pretty much intertwined. You use the word faith, so why don't you explain to me what you mean by the word faith?
So there are two forms of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a faith that means a set of beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
such as Judaism is a faith, or as Melanie Phillips said, it's a three-legged stool. It's the people, the book, and the land. And I thought that was a nice
I'd like
consummate.
it too. Yeah.
But so we have faith that means,
You're talking about faith more broadly as a synonym of religion or religious
that's
practice.
the first set.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's just generic faith. Let's say small f faith.
Well, that you have faith that your elevator's not going to fall.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Just belief that things are going to work out. And I'll say how they're going to work out, because faith doesn't always have to be positive. For example, I consider myself a fatalist, meaning you can't question fate. You could use your free will to figure out how you're going to get there, but in the end, it's all going to take you to a place. Now, my faith might be that, that when I reach, I'm not talking about death, right? That's usually what we think of when we think of fatal, but when I reach like a very bad place in my life, it doesn't detract from the fact that if I put my faith in fatalism, that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And not to put words into your mouth, but I think that when you have that faith, which is, I would say in layman's terms, everything happens the way it's supposed to be. I think that's an encapsulation of the broader concept of faith. Then perhaps the natural byproduct of faith, which is something that you exhibit and exude in every way, is joy.
Yeah, I mean, that could be one consequence. First of all, faith seems like a lonely word, the way that you're using it, and very abstract. Faith in what? What would be your what?
God.
Okay, so that's it. And people are a little shy to use that. Faith that there is an ordered world. See, I grew up in a milieu, again, Tino Shemanishbar, like they didn't know.
Right.
That if I had started talking about faith in God, my mom would have sought counseling for me. Not for all the other stuff I did, all the pot I did and all the other stuff, but she would have sought therapy, I think.
Because you grew up in a house where God was not present? Or...
Well, yeah, because it wasn't, we were very Jewish, like, we felt that connection, but rationalism was a thing. It was the ticket out of the shtetl, and it is. I mean, you can't have irrational perspective and expect to like live a day. I mean, but when I got older, first of all, I think every child naturally, they don't have terminology for these kinds of things, but they understand that there's some order in the world. The parents, and then when there's disorder among the parents, that can destroy faith in God too, because like, how did that work out? But it wasn't talked about in my house. It wasn't talked about in my synagogue either, like not really. I remember I went to confirmation class. Like after your bar mitzvah, you would go to like it's like a Christian word, but confirmation class. And I was the only boy in there, like some kind of nerd. But I just was interested in this stuff. And I came with questions on the first day or second day. And one of the questions that I remember was Techiyat HaMeitim, Revival of the Dead. And that was a song we used to sing in synagogue. I love the melody. It probably underscores a lot of my songs. Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, mechayim meitim berachamim rabim. gives life to the dead in infinite mercy.
Yeah.
And I said, what's the deal with that? And what's the deal with angels? Like, how do I process this? I was like 14.
Right.
And I don't remember any answers forthcoming. I do remember when I got home, it was like, that night, like at 8 o'clock, and the phone rang. And it was like, Peter, it's the rabbi. And I thought, well, this is going to be great because obviously I've been additive to the class and, best you not send him back.
Wow.
Very disruptive
for asking
stuff.
Questions. This was a Reformed congregation, I assume?
No, we were conservative. But still, just the idea of God was not spoken about. It just was absent.
Wow, that's amazing.
And, my dad got sick and he died young. And I was in a band, singing songs that I'd written, like Baby Let Me Be Your Cigarette and Torture Me All Night Long. I'm your fireman, show me where you're burning, I'll be there to hose you down. And at the same time, I was thinking about these things. My dad was like a heroic figure to me, and he was dying. And then when he died, all this train of these auspicious things started happening. I took a song that I'd written for him for his last Father's Day and got me a massive deal on Island Records. I met the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I started keeping kosher the fastest anybody's ever done it, and all these things just started happening. And maybe they had already happened, if I look back, these things that led me to these places. But it became very difficult for me not to, it isn't a question of believing in God. I don't know how else you could say that. It became, from the inverse, let's go, it became very difficult for me to accept that the world was random. Mm-hmm. I'll grant you that praying to an unseen deity thrice daily and strapping on leather stuff and not eating your delicious pork is weird. But it became very weird for me to understand or accept the way that I was raised, like everybody in my milieu, that everything is just happens because of random circumstances. Well, what made that happen? Well, it was another random circumstance, and then another one after that. And it became just as weird as wearing a fur hat, a shtreimel. And I'm going to pick the shtreimel, at least, that has some meaning to it.
Right.
So, that's how I developed, let's call it, faith in God.
Nice. We're running out of time. I do want you to perform a song if that's okay, but also I just want to ask two more questions because I just...
Yeah, what do we got here?
I have two questions about...
Let me shut this AC up. It's cold.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to get up. This is live. People, this is live.
Yeah, the funny thing is I didn't realize that my watch is like on some other time zone, so I'm like trying to struggle to see your watch. Okay, so just because your art is so prolific and really covers so many genres, I want to ask you a few questions. And the first one, we can make this sort of fast. Is your art Jewish?
Well, I think that, Neil Diamond's music is Jewish.
Because he's Jewish or because the music is Jewish? So the creation of a Jewish person is always going to be Jewish?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
There's something in it. There's nothing, it's oblique, all my stuff. And if you ask me to make up some, the stuff that I do, by the way, whether it's music or not sort of the journalistic writing, but any other kind of writing, which I do a lot of, I'm not really thinking about it that much. It's more like the way that a pitcher would throw a baseball or something. The more you think about it, you're in danger of like ruining your pitch,
So if your spirit is Jewish, then the manifestation of your spirit, in some level at least, must be
and my,
Jewish as well.
You could easily trace the songs
Yeah.
to be Jewish. Even Baby Let Me Be Your Cigarette, or maybe not that one, Torture Me or Fireman, because, every young person has to reproduce,
Right. Okay. Is all art beautiful?
No, some is horrible.
Interesting, because you posted, again, I don't remember if it's in your book or one of your posts, some photographs of things that would not necessarily be considered beautiful, like a splotch on a sidewalk.
That wasn't art. That was beautiful, random things on a sidewalk, like oil.
Right.
And it could be looked at as beautiful. And some terrible artwork, and maybe mine's terrible too, but some terrible artwork that I don't like, you could take a magnifying glass and find some beautiful thing.
Sure.
There's a lot of bad art out there.
Is life always beautiful?
Is life always beautiful? Compared to death, I sure believe it would be.
Don't compare it to anything. Is life always beautiful?
Yes, there's beauty in the pain too, and I don't want to experience beauty from pain.
Thank you. Okay. Sing me a beautiful song.
Is it song time?
You could sing the Shana song, or you could sing a different song.
Yeah, I should do. Yeah, I could do like
a medley. No, you don't have to sing the Shana song.
Yeah, maybe just because I'm trying to memorize these lyrics before with the show.
Nice.
Okay, I don't want to block out your camera. Let me lower this down. Yeah, this is kind of like. Let's see, like a. Unapologetically Jew. Lord, I'm looking at you. Unapologetic Jew. Yeah, I could do that for a while, but.
Well, I'm glad you memorized all the words to that song.
Unapologetically Jewish. There's not a lot that rhymes with Jewish.
Yeah.
All right, here's a song that I thought I would sing, which maybe connects to your last question about is life always beautiful?
Okay.
It's called Can't Drag Myself Away. I wrote this sometime when young grandchildren were like, I don't know what they were doing. They were like hanging around my feet. The mother offers warmth. The father shines his light. The wind whispers through the clouds. The falcons take to flight. The carpenter builds a home. The doctor cures the ill. The wolf howls out a love song. The soldier takes the hill. And I can't drag myself away from this. Can't drag myself away. Can't drag myself away. The penitent seeks forgiveness. The farmer prays for the seed. The teacher awakens memory. The angel blesses those in need. And I can't drag myself away. Can't drag myself away. Can't drag myself away. Not for a moment, not for a moment, not for the slightest vision of time. The singer stirs the unbeliever. The gravedigger shovels clay. The highway restores the spirit. The hand brushes tears away. And I Can't drag myself away from this. Can't drag myself away. Can't drag myself away. Not for a moment, not for a moment, not for the slightest division of time. The child absorbs universes. The victor offers hymns of praise. The rock conveys its stillness. The dreamer longs for better days. The dead recall their lives. The hungry walk in despair. God calls all into being. The contented float on air. And I can't drag myself away from this. Can't drag myself away. Can't drag myself away. Can't drag myself away. That's what I got for you, Shana.
And now I have to drag myself away from that. Peter, I can't thank you enough. This has been an absolute gift to share this time with you and to be able to really just even be in your sphere of energy. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Nice.
And Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai, betach Am Yisrael Chai. It will live and live in strength. Mecholel el cholel. It will go from strength to strength.
Amen. Thanks for tuning in. You know, you can support the Unapologetically Jewish podcast with any dollar amount. And thanks to Jewish Creativity International, your donations of $180 or more are now fully tax deductible. Donation information is in the show notes. And let me just say, I appreciate every single dollar of support. Your support helps me to help you to defend the Jewish people and the Jewish state. So thank you. And Am Yisrael Chai.